Oh, hello. Are we? I'm like, is it Corinne or I that start? I'm
It's
sorry.
me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's me. I'm seeing folks are coming into the room, so I was just pausing there, but it is definitely the top of the hour. So we will be getting started. By way of introduction, my name is Corinne Hodges. I'm the CEO of the Association of Women's Business Centers. It's my passion and it's my joy to get to do the job I get to do every day, helping to ignite opportunities for women who want to grow their businesses or start new businesses, all with the support of women's business centers nationally and really important partners like Intuit, who have awesome tools like QuickBooks that we're going to be diving into in just a few moments. You may not know what a women's business center is. So if you don't, put simply, it's where women go and be among other women as they seek to launch and start a new business, take advantage of free training and counseling, mentoring, and networking opportunities. And perhaps most importantly, finding access to capital, which is a fancy word for money or funding. We know that it takes money to make money, and women's business centers are a critical tool in your toolbox. In fact, 70% of our clients nationwide are women, but we serve anyone. We're not going to turn anyone away. 56% of our clients identify as women of color, and we're statutorily mandated to serve economically and socially disadvantaged. So really, all are welcome and all find wonderful resources. So we're here today to give you some really important information, but also encouragement. Those people that work with women's business centers and our partners are seeing results in their businesses, and they're turning ideas into businesses. They're turning their businesses into being more profitable. They're expanding into new markets. They're building greater revenue, and ultimately finding greater quality of life. And that's really what it's all about for all of us. So with all of that in mind, I would like to thank the people that made today possible. And I want to start with Karina Liriano, who's the Director of Education and Engagement at AWBC. She handles all of the messy details and makes sure that when you show up, you have a quality presentation and you've got something, of value. So really appreciate Karina and her hard work. But also with our partners. And I want to start with Anna Kipley at Intuit, who's the Associate Marketing Manager in the partnerships area. And she has really been a standout kind of partner to work with. She's really broken the mold and shown me what it's like to work with a state-of-the-art company who really understands the value of strong partnerships. And she's brought so much to us that we can in turn deliver to you. And we'll be sharing more with you about that. So Anna, thank you for that. And then last but not least, I definitely want to thank Mariette. Mariette Martinez has worked with us in a variety of presentations, and we're really excited about today. And we'll get to her bio in just a moment, but I certainly appreciate all of her effort and energy and excitement. It's a joy to work with this team. So with that, let me just tell you where you are. You should be hopefully seeing a slide that says the title. Yeah, what does year-end success look like? And we really mean what it looks like on paper. We know that you're all going to measure success differently, but we want to be sure that what you get on paper reflects your business the best. And so that's what today is all about. So a little bit of housekeeping. We'd love to have you get in and test out the chat, make sure that everything's connected and working well. So drop an introduction to yourself. Let us know who you are and where you're located or what your business is. We'd love to see some engagement in that chat. If you've got a question though, a question on the topic, a question about a women's business center or about the QuickBooks product or today's presentation, I know Mariette will be queuing you for questions, but you can also post your questions directly in the Q&A function. Q&A works a little different for us on the back end, and it's easier to organize and make sure that we've answered your questions. So we'd love to have you use that. So we'll be getting some more details out to you in just a moment, but I'm going to turn it over to the experts here to do that. So it's my pleasure to bring to the virtual stage to you, Mariette Martinez, who's a small business educator. She's a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, and she's served as a small business accountant and advisor for over 20 years, though she doesn't look like she'd be old enough to do that. As a woman entrepreneur herself and a guide for her community, Mariette takes the approach of relationship building between advisor and small business very intentionally, which is based on active listening and creating a safe and brave space for the small businesses to share their true needs and challenges. As a mentor for her bookkeeping community, she believed in strengthening inner value and abundance mindset first before delivering true value to those who serve. So you can see she brings her passion, and you're going to see that soon. So without further ado, welcome, Mariette, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Corinne. And by the way, that was such a beautiful way to start. You know, when I work alongside partners, as Corinne mentioned, which today is the Association of Women Business Centers and Intuit QuickBooks, it's you never really know the dynamic. You're going to go in, you know, you bring your A game, as all you entrepreneurs here have. But it's just such a great way to start really just being present and being grateful. And so, Corinne, I just want to let you know that was such a beautiful way to start today. And I'm grateful for that. And I thank you for that. And I thank you all for showing up as well. Okay, so we have about 50-ish minutes or 55-ish minutes. So we are going to get into the content. And luckily for me, Corinne did a lot of the intros already, so we can go ahead and move forward. So yes, welcome to What Does Year-End Success Look Like? And just as Corinne said, I'm just going to reiterate that. So year-end success can look different for everyone, obviously. But if you can really set the stage and almost be able to see the end game and have the end in mind, right? Stephen Covey, from the beginning of prepping for your year end, or as you go into closing the year, which many times is in January and February, because you need your year to close before you can officially close your year, we're going to be able to show you that. So we're going to really open the doors and pull the curtains back on what it would look like ideally to have a very strong year end. And that way it also builds the confidence to step into your new year with financial confidence. And that's what our objectives and what success will look like at the end of today's session. Quickly, here is a disclaimer. So we will be covering some tax tips here and some, kind of accounting principles. And with that being said, we want to always make sure we mention that this is for information purposes only. And then, as Corinne mentioned, my name is Mariette Martinez. For those of you that haven't met me already, hopefully I have some of my community here as well, because I was able to share this exciting opportunity. And if not, you all are part of our shared community here with Intuit and the Women Business Centers, and of course here Master Books, which is where I am living now these days. So after 20 plus years, as Corinne said, it has been over 20 years. I started my accounting career back in 1998. So you can do the math there. But about 6 to 7-ish years ago, I actually went through a transformation like all of you as entrepreneurs. And I started a new journey, which was to transition from practitioner, so serving the small business community for almost 2 decades, to actually teaching and educating and empowering them. And in 2020, I founded Master Books, and that's really where I'm at today. So for all of you that are newer entrepreneurs, I have a baby too. I just birthed a baby in 2020, so she's only 2 years old. And there at Master Books, our goal and our mission is to really build financial and business literacy from the inside out. And also, more importantly, to partner with champions like the partners that we have today to really be able to reach the masses. So again, super grateful to be here. So we're actually going to check in. Oops, not yet. I don't want to thank you for sharing yet. So we want to check in and do a quick poll and just do a check-in on everybody, how you all are feeling. Where are you at with your bookkeeping and your year-end close up to this point? So Karina is going to be helping me a lot today. So thank you, Karina, for being here. And she's going to go ahead and launch that poll, so that way we can get a feel on where everybody is. I'll probably just leave that on maybe just for maybe 45 seconds here. And in the meantime, let me just give you a little bit more logistics. Also, remember, this is a safe place. This is a brave space. What I am, I would say, very proud of is that I really make a commitment to partner with organizations and small business champions. That's what I like to call them. Of course, today is Intuit and Corinne's organization. I like to partner with those organizations that really provide this opportunity to be safe and brave and honest. And so just share with us where you're at and share with one another, because that way you all can maybe resonate with, ooh, yeah, I haven't started yet, or, oh my gosh, I'm almost finished. And maybe one of you can go ahead and cheer the other one on. So go ahead and answer that in the poll. And then also, as Corinne mentioned, there's going to be just a couple of logistics. The main one is really in regards to questions related to the content. It's always best to use the Q&A. Q&A is not always turned on, but it is turned on for this session. So you can just go straight there and ask a question, and then I can jump into there when I have a chance, or Karina's also going to mention those for us. The chat is for y'all to just stay super engaged throughout this entire session. I am a huge believer in staying engaged, as long as that's a good learning style for you. Some people need to just close that chat and just focus on the content. I totally get that. But if you want to stay engaged, if you want to connect with one another, please do that throughout this entire session. So we can go ahead and close that poll, Karina. And then I'm going to see if I can see. Yes, I can. So there you go. So we have some of you saying, nope, haven't even started. We have a few of you getting there and almost finished. And some of you are being really honest, if not all of you. And you're like, you know what? I'm not done yet. So there's no all dones there, right? And by the way, I'm not all done yet either. So I would probably be at getting there. Maybe even close to nope, haven't started. Now, I'm going to share what I mean in a few minutes. That doesn't mean that I'm not tax ready. I have all my books done, but I haven't really started the closing yet, because I do personally like to wait towards the end of January, if not February, because I like to close January up, because sometimes there's some things that are in the timing of the money coming in and transactions happening. And so really for me, closing works better in February. But again, we'll be talking a little bit more about that. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to now get into the agenda. Okay, perfect. I'm just going to move a little camera around here so I can see everybody names. And okay, perfect. All right. And last thing before we get officially started is that I will check the chat from time to time, but really it's for all of you. I want to stay focused. I want to deliver value. So I'm going to stay on course, but I will have some cues to ask questions or, to answer your questions. But in general, just so you know, I won't be opening the chat very often, just because I want to stay on point. Okay, perfect. So let's keep going. So we're going to cover the ultimate year-end checklist. Then we're going to talk about the business accounting profile and why it's so important to start with this profile, this assessment of your business, so that way you can really understand what you should be doing and how you should be setting up your business. And yes, you're probably asking, you're talking about setting up, but I thought we were talking about closing. Well, many people may have started their business towards the end of the year, and so they're still maybe in setup mode and in closing mode all at the same time. And so it's very possible that you're doing everything at once. That's usually called catching up. It's catching up on your setup. It's catching up on your accounting. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to go into the tax ready books journey. And as you can tell, I get very excited about tax ready books. The idea there is just to be able to have your books managed year round. So that way you can be exactly what Corinne said. You can be able to access capital. You can be finance ready. You can feel very confident about the decisions you're making off of your numbers, because essentially your books are managed all year round, not quarterly, not annually, all year round. And that's really what tax ready books are. And then the year-end readiness process, we're going to give you some cool techniques in regards to truly closing your year end. So we got some stuff to get into. Let's keep going. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the ultimate year-end checklist. And by the way, I will cue when you all have some freebies and some cool goodies and gifts that we're giving you alongside of this content. I'll go ahead and share that. Also, I didn't mention it earlier. Everyone that's here, you'll actually get 2 different handouts. You'll get the live handouts that are in note format, so you can take notes, and you can either print them out later on and watch it as the replay. You can open them up. It's going to be in a Google Drive link. And then, let me see, hold on. Something just came up. I don't want that to come up. And then you're also going to get a separate handout just with your resources. That's super important, because that way you don't have to dig through all the slides. You can just go right into the resource page. Just want to make sure I mention that. Okay. So going back to the ultimate year-end checklist. So everyone, just imagine Just imagine that you're able to be wherever you're at. And you all just shared where you're at. You're all in different places in your entrepreneurial path, okay? But you all chose to show up for yourself today. So we are actually all in the same place right now. Virtually or not, we're all in the same place right now. And with that being said, that's exactly where we're going to start. We're going to start with the end in mind, and we're all going to be able to see the end of what this journey looks like. What does it look like to have tax-ready books? What does it look like to check everything off of that small business ultimate checklist and make sure you feel super positive and confident about going into your next year? So we're going to start with the end in mind. That's something that I love to do as an educator, and that I actually would have appreciated probably in school, that people show me the end game. And then from there, I can pull back and say, okay, now I have to create the goals and the path to get there. Sometimes when you don't see full picture, when you don't see what that end, that reward is supposed to look like, it's really hard to keep yourself motivated to continue on. And so today we're going to start with the end game. So here is the end game, and you're probably like, wow, okay. So the idea here is that there is an ultimate small business year-end checklist that I'm going to give to all of you. It's a freebie. It's my gift to all of you. And this is actually a checklist that I have been building out and really, walking through my small business clients for years. So this has been growing. It's a breathing, living thing. And what I've done over the years is I've basically have realized that there's specific topics, specific key areas and concepts that my small business owners struggle with. And so what I do is I ask myself, what is the best way for me to educate them on it and have them start kind of ticking it off when they really start feeling confident about these topics. And so what I've done over the years is, I try to still keep it very comprehensive. It's just on one page, because I'm a sucker for one pagers. When anything becomes more than one page, it's hard to finish it, right? But on this one long small business year-end checklist on one page, we're going to try to check everything off. Now, obviously not all today. This is just awareness that there's something out there for you to work alongside your business. Or if you serve small business owners, you can use this alongside your small business owners to check things off the list. So this is your end goal, right? End in mind, Stephen Covey, this is your end goal. But let's be honest, okay? We need to break it down. We need to break this down a little bit so that way it feels digestible and it feels like you can take action on it. So let's do that. Okay, so let's cover the key year-end areas to consider. As I mentioned before, when you get your hands on this awesome checklist, it's actually available in your resources. You'll see it's called the Ultimate Small Business Checklist. What we're going to do here is we're going to kind of break down the categories that you're going to see in this checklist. Of course, you're going to want to open the checklist to see all the tasks under it. So the first category is actually knowing your legal and tax entity type. This is super critical for you to step into what are your obligations, what are your compliance responsibilities, what is it that you need to know about your legal and entity type for you to be able to set up your business, for you to be able to mold your chart of accounts, your accounting systems, your tasks, your process, your workflows, all around that specific legal or entity type, or legal and entity type, excuse me. And so many people just start doing their business and they don't know that if you're a sole proprietor or if you formalized and became a corporation, and if you've chose to be a corporation, but then you chose an S election because somebody told you to do that. There's several things you need to do because of your choice of your entity. And so it's super important for you to start with knowing your legal and tax entity. Then you need to be able to know what kind of expenses and deductions and credits are available to you. Now, when I say available to you, they can be available to you as a small business owner. They can be available to you because you're in a specific industry. They can be available to you because you're a specific tax entity type. And so you really need to first know your tax entity type and then start digging into your expenses and your credits, and knowing whether an expense is deductible is also super important. We have a bonus for you at the end for that. Then you want to be able to review and prepare all of these documents ahead of time. Again, if you can see, it's a build out. You know your entity type. You start understanding what your responsibilities are, what is expense you can take, what kind of deductions are available to you, what kind of credits you have. Then you're going to build all the documentation around that, right? You cannot take an expense without a source document. I've always told my clients for many, many decades, when they'd come in, they'd say, oh yeah, I wrote that $1,200 check. And I'd say, but there's no payee. It literally is a blank check. In business, there's no such thing as a blank check. Not if you want it to be deductible, not if you want it to be legitimate. So you need to start taking care of all of your documentation. And then you want to go ahead and start thinking about the deadlines that you need to be on top of. And of course, with all of this being said, you want to plan for your best year yet. You always want to have the goal to have your best version of yourself, your best version of your business. That is a great goal. Like, put it on your checklist. On all of my checklists, I put be better today, make an impact today, make more money today. Like, you always want to step into that next level you. And so that's super important. But let's keep it simple today. And let's go ahead and talk about where we start. So where we start, again, is knowing your legal and tax entity type. And then once you know that, then you can start building out everything I just said, which is essentially building out your tax-ready books. So we're going to start with the business accounting profile. And oops, I'm sorry, it looks like that. I'm going to have to fix that. That's a little too big. So why we're going to start with that? Because knowing your entity type allows you to actually step into, again, all the necessary information you need to know about your business, but you learn about your entity type when you start building what's called a business accounting profile. And I'll get this fixed for you. I'm sure it's fixed in the handouts. So ultimately, what a business accounting profile is, and I'm just going to read it to you just for a moment because it looks like it's a little messed up. It's basically a detailed assessment of the tasks, the tools, and the processes you need to learn to manage your bookkeeping, to prepare those tax-ready books, and to build the accounting and business infrastructure that's going to serve you and your business's needs. So with all that being said, if you're going to go ahead and build this detailed assessment of process and workflows and accounting tasks and basically all the checklist items you need to do, you need to know your entity first and build around your entity type. And that's why I put it there. Knowing the business's legal and entity tax type is the very first step. So let's go ahead and build out an accounting profile together. And by the way, freebie number 2, you'll actually get a link on how to build out an accounting profile. I have a video for you, and I actually have a template you can use as well. So first of all, you start with your entity type. We already talked about that, right? That's a basic structure of your business, both on the legal and the entity perspective. After that, you need to know what the business sells, right? What does your business sell? Are you a product business? Are you a service business? Are you a hybrid of both? Are you in a specific industry? Are you in a specific sub-industry, which is known many times as a niche, okay? Once you know those two things, then you pretty much can start saying, okay, so these are the things I have to do in my business. These are the workflows, the accounting tasks. Here are my tax and compliance obligations. You start really getting those light bulbs turned on because you've gone and learned the fundamentals first. With that comes documentation, record keeping, building on your operational processes, and of course, making sure from the very beginning, again, end in mind, everybody, end in mind, you want to build a company infrastructure. You want to have plans to grow and scale. You want to be able to measure your performance and report that for yourself first, of course, for your financial statements and any other kind of metrics you're using. And then eventually, if you are going to want to access capital or bring in investors or partners, you're going to want to be able to have a reporting method for you to show the outsiders how you're really doing in your business. So that's pretty much everything you want to do to start building that assessment of the needs of your business. Okay, but let's pull back a minute because maybe you're thinking, okay, that looks good. Yeah, I'll check all those things. I'll make sure I do all that assessment. But Mariette, I still need help knowing what my entity type is. Like, by the way, please, and seriously, you can put it in the chat right now if you want to. I have had that question asked thousands of times at this point, not only by business owners, even by financial professionals, accountants, bookkeepers, and tax professionals are still trying to figure out the entity type and the legal type and how someone elects to be one version versus another. Legal is different than your tax status. Please, there's no judgment here. If you have this question, I'm glad you're here because we're going to go ahead and dig a little deeper into it. So When you want to understand the legal versus your tax type for your particular entity, okay, because I'm sure I have all different types of entities here, you always start with the legal side first. So legally, what is your business? Okay. If you've done nothing at all whatsoever, and I go deeper into this in a course of mine where I literally call it the self-employed progression, where you progress from a sole proprietor all the way to an S corp, even to a C corp. I teach that in depth, but this is the mini version of it. Okay, you start as a self-employed. You start as a sole proprietor. You started working on the weekends. You started getting 1099 jobs. You are a self-employed sole proprietor. For legal purposes, you and your business are one and the same, right? You are unincorporated and you basically are a sole proprietor. Now, let's say you did go ahead and formalize and you incorporated. If you incorporated, you're a corporation. There you go. That's the answer. Now, when people say, well, I'm not sure, I do pull back a little bit and say, so you're not sure if you filed articles of incorporation, or you're not sure if you filed some agreements out there? If that's not the case, if that's the case, then we need to have a conversation about documentation and really understanding the steps that you're doing as an entrepreneur. Again, we're not judging here. We're just being very honest. You should be sure whether or not you filed some paperwork. Now, to be honest and to be fair, what if your accountant did it? What if your bookkeeper did it? What if your attorney did it? I understand that, but you should also be aware of what's getting done for your business. So again, if you filed incorporation paperwork, articles of incorporation, then you're a corporation. Now, where the confusion usually lies is, but I am a limited liability company. What does that mean? That basically means you or someone else that helped you basically filed with the state to be a limited liability company. That's a state legal designation. It's not a federal designation. It's a state legal designation. And most people will file to be a limited liability company to protect the liability between the owner and the business. It's essentially an umbrella. Okay. And so again, though, you would have known if you filed with the state to be a limited liability company, also referred to as an LLC. If you have partners, you're at LLC. If you are a single member, you may have heard SMLLC, which stands for single member LLC. Okay. Are we good? Anybody have questions? Go ahead and put it in the Q&A, because that's when usually questions come up. So now, okay, I get it. I get it. I know what I am legally. Yes, that's something to celebrate, by the way. So now you have to understand your tax status. So your tax status is basically, what am I for purposes of my tax return, for purposes of the IRS. Okay, so for the IRS, when you're a sole proprietor, you're a disregarded entity. That's what they call you. And you file the 1040 Schedule C. For a corporation, you may be a C corporation, which is what you are by default, but someone or yourself may have elected to be an S corporation. You need to elect to be a small corporation, an S corporation, and that's what you may be for tax purposes. Now, here is, the most fun. If you're a limited liability company, you can be any of those. So you can elect to be taxed as a 1040 Schedule C disregarded, as a partnership, as an S Corp, or as a C Corp. And so again, I'm not going to go in more detail on that because that's now, really guiding you. And these are just overall concepts, but that's why the LLC gets very confusing, because people don't know, well, what am I for tax purposes? So I'll give you an example. When I started Master Books, I submitted the paperwork to be a limited liability company to protect myself, to give myself that asset protection, but I was still a Schedule C at that time. Then I decided to elect to be an S corporation, and now I'm an S corporation. So you can, it's a gradual progression. That's also very important for you to understand, that there could be a gradual progression to this journey. Okay. So just really quickly, I'm going to just check really fast on the cues and in the chat and see how everybody's doing. So it looks like the questions were more about the resources. That's what's going on over there in the chat. So again, feel free to go ahead and chat away, everybody. And I don't see any cues, so I think we're good to go. So I'm going to keep going. Okay, tax ready books journey. So now imagine you have created your business accounting profile. You know your entity type, both your legal and your tax entity type. So you need to get into your books now. You need to build tax-ready books. So here is your journey, ladies and gentlemen, your tax-ready books journey from start to finish. What we're going to do is we're going to take it over 3 steps. We're going to complete the books. Then we're going to build those books and take them from the financial statement preparation all the way to the tax preparation. And then we're going to prepare you for year end. And we're going to give you some demonstrations of reports in QuickBooks on the slides. We're not going to go into QuickBooks in this session, but we are using QuickBooks reports to demonstrate what it looks like to have tax-ready books. Okay, so let's actually start with number 1, completing the accounting quickly and accurately. Now, for those of you that haven't got started yet, and if you're really starting from scratch, and that's again fine, this is how you can literally complete a whole year's worth of accounting. We're gonna teach it to you right now. Here you go. Okay. So there's 3 options to complete your accounting, okay? And I want to be very clear about that. Depending on what you are choosing to do, depending on what you, hopefully, if you've engaged with a bookkeeper, if you're not a bookkeeping or accounting professional and you need to catch up on your accounting, you probably want to engage with a professional to help you at this point so you can get caught up, because again, we're already into 2022 and you don't want to get too far behind in 2021. So your financial professional or your bookkeeping professional should be walking you through these options too. But the cool thing is now you're seeing it, so you're going to be more aware in your conversation. So there's 3 options. You can connect your bank. And I'm going to go through each option for you. So let's start with connecting your bank. So connecting your bank is this idea of directly connecting your bank or credit cards right into an electronic solution. Again, we're using the example of QuickBooks here. And so you don't have to go back and manually enter. I cringe when I say that, by the way, but there are millions of business owners that still do this. But you don't have to manually enter the data, like grab a bank statement, enter the data into a software. No way. Your software, QuickBooks in this example, will directly link to your bank or your credit card institution, or even your merchant services like PayPal or Square or Stripe, and bring all that magically in. And all you're doing at that point is just categorizing the transactions. That's why, I mean, I'm going back 20 years. When I would have to catch up on a year's worth of accounting, it would take me maybe a month or 2. Now it could take me, honestly, depending on the transactions, a couple of hours, maybe a day. Okay, depending on how many transactions there are. I know some accounting professionals out there are like, shh, Mariette, don't say that. But why not? I mean, y'all must know the truth, right? That's the truth. This could all be done in a matter of a few hours. And so the 3 reasons to directly connect to your bank: catch-up accounting, quick and easy, right? You can get it done. The validity of it. I'm sorry, everybody. Let's minimize your user error, right? The transposing of the numbers. No one needs to do that anymore, right? And it just creates more work for you because the bank is putting the information right into your electronic system, and it's all right because it's literally a direct upload into the system. No one's doing any kind of typing or transposing. And of course, at this point now that we're like a good 3 decades into this data transfer that happens between electronic systems and banks and credit cards, it is reliable and secure. Next option is uploading the CSV file. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit more about this. So I want to make sure this makes sense to everybody. So when you have to upload a CSV, the reason is because when you try to connect your bank, depending on the bank and the credit card's relationship with that accounting solution, so let's use QuickBooks, for example, depending on the QuickBooks relationship with Wells Fargo, QuickBooks and Wells Fargo have made an agreement that Wells Fargo can bring in, let's say, 1 year's worth of transactions. I'm just giving you an example. Well, if you're trying to catch up on 2019, 2020, and 2021, which again is very possible, that doesn't serve you completely because you could only bring in 2021. What about 2020 and 2019? Well, what you do is you use apps, okay? An app, I'll give you the example of one in a minute. It's called Money Thumb, and it's in your resources as well. And that app will convert a PDF, an actual PDF, whether it's on paper or whether it's the download you get from the bank, and it will turn it into a file that you can I'm getting very excited here, that you can automatically upload into QuickBooks. Like, hello, big accounting secret, by the way. I know my accounting professionals are not happy when I share this with the world. They're like, that is literally our secret weapon. When business owners don't know about that, they actually think that we're manually entering years worth of data. No, you're not. No, they're not. They're converting that data into a file that can go magically into their electronic solution. This is game changer of all sorts for every single entrepreneur on the planet, that you can do that now. It's such a huge time saver. Okay, and that's basically when you would use that option. And last but not least, same idea here. So I'm just going to go through it quickly, is that when you're trying to upload into QuickBooks, sometimes you do have access to the CSV, or you can convert it to CSV, as I just mentioned. And sometimes you literally only have a PDF file. And I've had so many business owners call me cringing, and they're like, Mariette, I literally only have like the paper, like the PDF paper, not the PDF, excuse me. I only have the physical paper, right? I don't even have the option to download to a PDF, or I do have the option to download PDF, but I can't turn it into a CSV, or I can't turn it into a file where I can, upload it into QuickBooks. And I tell them, don't worry about it. You can't upload PDF into QuickBooks, just so everybody knows, but you can upload a CSV into QuickBooks. And so there is apps, example, MoneySum, again, it's in your resources, that converts a PDF statement into a CSV, and the CSV gets uploaded into QuickBooks. Magic, absolute magic, by the way. Okay. And this is one of the best kept bookkeeper secrets. No longer a secret, by the way, because I just shared it with the world. Okay, number 2 is building. Okay, now we're going to go a little bit quicker, just because you guys have a session on tax ready books coming up in a couple of sessions. The next one is QuickBooks 101. And after that, we're going to go to tax ready books. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker here. So tax ready books is your opportunity to build your financial statements. The key financial statements, of course, are your profit and loss, also known as your income statement, your balance sheet, and your cash flow statement. And so let's just give you an example of using profit and loss and building out your tax ready books. Number 1, you start with the profit and loss income statement. So this is an example of one in QuickBooks. And then what you do is you build it out into tax ready books. What that basically means is you should be able to go line by line on your actual financial statement, on the revenue line, on the cost of goods line, on your expenses line, and you should be able to match it directly to an area on the tax return. It's called line by line matching. I have another resource for you. In the resource, I have a video. It's a 2-part video, about 20 minutes, 10 minutes each video. And I actually teach you in that video how to do exactly what I'm showing here, how to take a P&L and line by line match it to the Schedule C. I use an example of a Schedule C in that video. Now, I do know that many entrepreneurs that have worked with accounting professionals, if not most of you, I'm sure have worked with tax professionals, unless you do your own taxes, this is new to them. They're like, wait, we're supposed to do line by line from the P&L and the balance sheet to our tax return? The answer is yes. Now, sadly, many accounting professionals and tax professionals, I'll be honest, I'm not trying to put them down. I've heard this from their mouths. So from their mouths to my mouth, okay? They don't do that. They don't match the forms with the books. That is to your detriment, everybody. That is completely to your detriment. You need to make sure that the books match the tax returns, because the tax returns is what gets sent to the government. And so you're signing on the bottom line that this is all true, that under perjury, everything looks right. So this has to be done, okay? And you're not only doing it on the P&L, okay? This example of an S Corp, you're also doing it for the balance sheet. So here's an example of a balance sheet. There's the balance sheet on your left-hand side, and there's the Schedule L that would be on a corporate return or a partnership return. And you're doing the same thing. You're matching your assets and your liabilities and your ending balances. Okay, now the cash flow statement. Again, we're not going to go too deep into that, because we will do a much deeper dive in the cash flow statement in the tax ready books. But the idea behind the cash flow statement is really understanding the questions that it answers. So the cash flow statement answers, where did my money go? And maybe people are thinking, well, doesn't the profit and loss say that? No, the profit and loss only shares or only reflects where your revenue minus your expenses where they are on that form, like a snapshot of that, and what your net profit is. But all of your money is running on both your financial statements, on your balance sheet and on your profit and loss. So the cash flow statement is the connection between all money transactions in and out, and allows you to see that. That's why it's called cash flow, because it's flowing in the business. It also separates these transactions, so it makes a little bit more sense to see them into 3 different categories, and then it reconciles the cash balance to the balance sheet. So here are the 3 categories here. And so when you're separating, it's really your electronic system, right? Here's a great example. You wouldn't be doing this in Excel or on paper. An electronic solution is doing this magically in the background. You're going to the report center, and then you're downloading a report, or you're grabbing the report that says cash flow statement or statement of cash flows, and it's going to basically have these 3 categories separated for you. And this is what it looks like in inside of QuickBooks Online. You have the 3 separated categories. Like I said, it's doing it for you: operating, investing, and financing. And then it all should tie back to the balance sheet. And now it's super important for you to understand, wow, okay, so I got my 3 financial statements, my balance sheet, my profit and loss, and my cash flow statement. How do they all play together or connect to one another? I love showing this. This is the beauty of actually doing what's called tying back to the financials. When you have all your finances in order, when you are tax ready books, meaning you're managing finances in real time, and so your P&L is managed in real time and current. Your balance sheet, of course, is current, and the cash flow statement is kind of happening magically in the background. There's total balances, right? Net balances on the bottom of these reports that all should be talking to each other. The net income on the profit and loss talks to the cash flow statement. The cash on the cash flow statement talks to the balance sheet. And also the net income on the profit and loss is part of the equity on the balance sheet. So you literally can tie them together if everything is working out. Now, I've had people say, oh my gosh, Merritt, I've tried this and they're not matching, or it's not tying out. Of course, you're going to want to talk to your accounting professional about that. Maybe there's some troubleshooting you have to do on why your balance sheet's not tying out to your income statement, or why the cash flow statement is not tying out to your cash. There's probably something in regards to the way it was set up, going back to your business accounting profile, and whether or not you really set everything up for success from the very beginning. Okay. And then last but not least is preparing the path to year-end readiness. So again, we started with the end in mind. We started with the ultimate checklist. And of course, all of those things on the checklist assume that you're managing your books, that you understand your accounting profile, that you understand financial statements. You've gone and done some research, of course, around your industry, expenses, deductions, credits. And now you're like, woo, I'm ready. I'm ready to prepare for year end, right? Which is now. We're all in year end. And so that's why, again, the catch up idea is super important for you to understand, that many people have to catch up. But what would this look like ideally? And remember, we're living in an ideal world, which every single one of you could live in as well. So begin closing the books. Okay. This is what you first start with. When you ready, set, go, you're going to begin closing your books. You're going to begin what's called the year-end readiness process. You can start by reviewing your year-end checklist, right? Go back to that ultimate checklist and see if you've really ticked everything off. If you really understand everything we've covered up to this point, you've already gone in quite a bit into the checklist information. Prepare ahead of time. Tax ready books, that's the essence of tax ready books, that you're tax ready ahead of tax season. That's why I love calling it tax ready books. By the way, I've been using this terminology for over 2 decades. And many people are like, I've never heard that before, probably because I may be one of the only ones that use it. But I love the idea, because I tell my clients, especially when I was doing taxes for over 20 years, and they would think that they're supposed to prepare for taxes in January and February of the following year. And I'd say, no, we are tax ready all year round. In January, all we're doing is closing December. Everything else has been done already. That's what it means to prepare ahead of time. Also, a couple of other best practices is to schedule those year-end meetings, both with your accountant, with your tax professional, with your own team members. And then, of course, as I started in the beginning, you can plan for your best year yet. You always want to be able to feel confident that you can plan for your best year yet. Okay, We will be having Q&As in a few minutes, but I do want to get through this last topic here first. The year-end readiness process, and I'm just going to have a sip of water as well. And again, don't forget, everyone, feel free to, if you have any kind of feedback or any kind of comments around these topics for your fellow peers, feel free to do that in the chat as well. If you have specific Q&A, put it in the Q&A. Okay, so now let's do the year-end readiness process. Now, I have only a few slides for you. I literally have an 8-hour boot camp just on this process, on this topic, but I have condensed it for you in about 3 to 5 minutes. So let's see what that feels like. So I'm going to actually take a moment for you to read this, because this one is not messed up like the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue with all of you. Okay, everyone. So the year-end readiness process is a detailed review and closing of your books. What that means is that you're going to go all in. This is a comprehensive year-end closing of your books. Now, again, all year round, you've been managing the books. All you've been balancing, you're maintaining the books. I call that the end-to-end accounting lifecycle. I have a boot camp for that as well. The end-to-end accounting lifecycle, which I'll share a resource that Intuit has also implemented after we created some really cool content for their certification program. I'm going to share that in a moment, but the idea is that you have been doing this all year round, and year-end readiness is just the 2 V's: verify, validate. That's it. Everything else is done, right? Ultimately, that is our goal, okay, to be able to be compliant and prepare business taxes and year-end compliance. But in many cases, let's be honest, okay, in many cases, businesses have not been doing this work. They haven't engaged with an accounting professional. They have not engaged with an accounting professional. And so what they're doing is they're catching up, okay? This is the catching up concept, where they need to basically do the full end-to-end accounting life cycle that I just mentioned. They're trying to do it all in January and February after their year closed, okay? What ends up happening is a lot of tough love is going to happen, because many accountants or bookkeeping or tax professionals don't want to serve those clients. I'll be honest, because we're trying to just serve our clients that have been good all year and that we only have to do a couple months worth of accounting. If you come in with 12 months worth of accounting, you may struggle finding someone qualified to help you, because they probably have a load of their own clients that they're working on. So I just want to be really honest about that. But it can be done, of course. There's going to always be people out there to serve you. So you're trying to catch up on all this stuff. You're trying to do a whole year's worth of accounting in just a couple of months. But ideally, what really should be happening is that this should be happening year round, right? You should be doing this quarterly, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. And I don't mean you're managing your books quarterly. I mean, you're meeting your professional at least quarterly. So you're managing your finances year round, and then you're meeting them at least quarterly. If not, of course, the best recommended way for you to work with any bookkeeping professional is on a monthly basis, because that way you're always up to date and you can do more fun things like goal setting and measuring your revenue and checking your performance, and maybe having to pivot and do some other kind of strategies, because you actually can see your business. You have clarity in your business. So what's important for you to understand is that year-end readiness can be split into 2 stages. There's the bookkeeping stage, which is really about audit proofing your books. It's where you do all your reconciliations. You do that line by line review I showed you. You do cleanup. You have to go back and forth with your bookkeeper many times about open items. You go source all your documents. You have to find all those documents so you can be audit proof. And then you're basically tying out the financials. Then you're closing the books for year-end taxes, which is when you're going to start working on compliance obligations like W-2s, 941s, 1099s. You're finalizing the books. Now you're probably working with the tax professional. So the bookkeeping professional may not be the tax professional. So now you're working alongside, you're all three hopefully at the same team. The bookkeeper, the tax pro, and the business owner are all working together to get the taxes done. Okay. But before we end on the year-end readiness topic, I want to go back to, so what about the catch-up process, Mariette? Go back a little bit about that, because guess what? I'm in that scenario. I need you to help me understand that. Okay, so the catch-up accounting process is, again, like I said, trying to do the entire end-to-end accounting lifecycle all right now. Okay, you're all trying to get that done right now. It's basically doing all of the tasks related to your business in a couple months versus doing it year round, which is ideally how it's supposed to be. So I wanted to share this really cool image for you. This is an image that actually was, I would say, inspired by my conversation with the Intuit Education team when we were working on their certification content. So I've been teaching end-to-end accounting lifecycle for at least a decade. I have boot camps on it and courses. When we started talking about their certification to be certified in QuickBooks for bookkeepers, I was telling them we really need to teach bookkeepers that there's an end-to-end accounting lifecycle so they can better talk to their business owners about that. And then they created this really beautiful image, which you all will have access to in your resources as well. And so the idea here is that if you start at the left, if you start at the left side here, okay, is that you manage the books all year round, okay? Then you want to go ahead and analyze and balance the books regularly. So that's the next thing you do. And then you want to evaluate and maintain the finances. So make sure it's all tuned up, like your oil change, and you check in your tires, right? And then ultimately you get here. You get here to finalizing your books and reporting your taxes at year end. Okay, everybody. So again, that was like a good little action-packed session. Hopefully y'all liked it. I'm going to check the Q&A. I'm going to check the chat as well. I'm going to check in on your cues. We have about, good. We got about maybe 9-10 minutes for questions. I am going to pull it back maybe 2 minutes before we end because I want to make sure I can bring Corinne in back and possibly Karina, so that way they can close and share any cool, exciting updates for their organization, of course, and then for any updates in regards to our next session. So before we do that, though, let me go ahead and see if I can stop sharing for a moment, because I'd love to see y'all. And let me open up the Q&A. Or Karina, before I do that, was there anything you were seeing inside of the chat that you want me to go ahead and start with?
Yeah, this one actually came in first, Mariette, and this is from Jeanette. She says, who can file the S Corp for an LLC?
Okay, so when you're saying who can file an S Corp for an LLC, I'm just going to answer it in two ways. Like filing, meaning the actual tax preparation, could be anyone. Anyone can file an S corporate return. You could even do it on TurboTax. Of course, you should be most likely using a tax professional if you are an S corporation. If you're referring to actually filing the paperwork, the form to S-elect, you could also do that yourself. You could also use, let's say, those online business entity websites like Inc.com or CorpNet. Or again, I would always suggest that you use your accounting professional to help you do that.
Thank you. The next one was in the Q&A.
Okay, let's see here.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you are an S Corp, can you go back to being a sole prop?
Yes, the answer is yes. You can actually, by the way, and going back to being real about everybody here and where you're at, you can go back to being whatever you want to be, or you kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it that, but I'll just, for the lack of a better word, kind of upgrade and downgrade. So if you went through that self-employed progression that I mentioned, where you were a sole proprietor, then you elected to be an S Corp, or you're a sole proprietor and you decided to be an LLC and then elected to be an S Corp. And guess what? You were just like, this is a lot. I didn't know that as an S Corp, I had to be paying myself reasonable compensation. I didn't know as an S Corp, X, Y, and Z, right? You can go back. Of course you can. And what I would suggest is, first have a conversation with your accounting professional and understand why you're trying to do that. Maybe it's just something that you're feeling a little bit of resistance on some type of task you need to do. The big one for S Corps is paying themselves on salary. Many business owners, they don't really understand what that means to pay themselves a payroll. If that's the only thing left in this example, then if you just understand that concept and start doing it, you possibly can stay where you're at. But if you really understand and don't want to be a specific entity anymore, you can always return back to another entity. You want to use an accounting professional to help you with that.
Thank you. The next 3 questions are from Susan Nolan in the Q&A.
Okay, so the first one, thank you, Susan. So the first one is, and I'm going to look at time, by the way, too, to be mindful of time. What is the difference between cash and accrual? Okay, very good question. So we're going to go much more deeper into this when we do tax ready books in an upcoming session. But the idea in very simple terms is cash means that you're only reporting the actual money you have in your hands. So let's use an example. If you are a service business and you invoice your customers on December 15, 2021, you invoice your customer, you don't have a payment for that invoice yet. That's it. That's you're basically looking at your books on the accrual basis, which you always should do because you want to see that you have collectibles, but you're not going to report that actual sale, that invoice sale as income because you haven't collected the actual invoice money. You haven't closed the invoice and have the cash in the bank. Okay. So cash would be you only are reporting the actual cash that you received in your hands and that you also paid out. Accrual is the opposite. Accrual is I invoiced my customer on December 20th. I didn't get paid by that customer yet, but in December 20th, 2021, if I got that invoice and I'm on the accrual, I do need to report that income. But at the same time, if I have a vendor bill, if I have to pay someone, I have an accounts payable for someone, and I already have the bill in my system and I know I have to pay it, you could also that incurred expense that you haven't paid yet, you can also go put that on your tax return. So basically it's the matching of an accrual would be you will report your invoices, but you'll also report your bills. On the cash side, you will only report the money in and you'll only report the money out. Okay, next one is, do these net income cash and need to match your bank balance? So, okay, so that is a big question, and I probably don't have time to talk about it too much, other than in tax ready books, we are going to cover cash flow. The main thing is, and this is super important, I'm only going to say this like really simply once, because it's a really big conversation. What you see on your profit and loss is really a snapshot. It's, oh my gosh, if I get all this revenue, including all my invoices, yes. Oh, these are a lot of expenses, including all my bills. This is my net profit. Okay. It's really just in theory what your business is. Now, what is actually happening with your cash is totally different. I gave you that example. If you have a $15,000 invoice on December 20th, but you never receive that money by the end of the year, then you're going into 2022 without 15 grand. There's no $15,000 in your bank. That's cash flow. So what's in your bank, cash flow, is always most likely going to be different than what's on your P&L. That's why cash flow mismanagement is the number one reason why businesses go into failure or close their doors, because they think profit is cash flow. They're completely two different things. Okay. I'm going to see if I can read this really fast. Effie, what is the estimated tax time commitment you suggest as a small business owner who is not too familiar with accounting should at least begin committing consistently? Effie, I love that. So I'm going to keep it simple. Whenever you really want to lean into something that you know is super important to you, how often should you do it? No one can tell you that. Okay. I'm an educator now. Okay. I started that journey over 7 years ago. Every single day I listen to a podcast. Every single day I try to do at least 15 to 30 minutes of research of other influencers and educators. Every single day I write something, if it's in my journal or I'm creating content. And so you need to decide on what is right for you to consistently start building that financial literacy muscle. And it needs to be done every single day. I mean, really, I love when John Maxwell says that real habits are done every single day. Yes, we miss a day here and there, of course, but it really comes down, Effie, to what you believe is important for you to learn, and then consistently do that every single day. And Effie, I'll just answer your quick question. It says, what is the estimated time for catching up on accounting? I could never answer that question because I don't know what people's transactions are. I've caught up in accounting for people that have 3 years worth of data that I need to catch up. And I've had to catch up in accounting when someone only started their business November 2021, and it's only November, December that I'm catching up, and they only have a few transactions. So it really depends on what the load is, and the best way for you to really understand what that time commitment looks like is to engage with an accounting professional. If you've decided on a software like QuickBooks, you can actually look them up on findaproadvisor.com. You can go to findaproadvisor.com and search for the professional there and just spend an hour with them, engage, invest in your business, or the advisors. Of course, the advisors in Corinne's organization. I'm sure she has opportunities for you too that I believe either Corinne or Karina will mention for you in the next minute or so. So I am going to close the Q&A. I am going to just quickly share my screen one more time because I do want to end here with a couple of slides, and then I'm going to hand this back to Corinne. Okay. So hopefully y'all got some questions answered. That was helpful for all of you. So what are common business expenses? These are just bonus slides. I'm not going to go through them with you. I gave you some business expenses that are common and some that are not so common, but I know many of you want to know about them. So I threw that in as a bonus. I also went ahead and shared a resource that I provide. I also have a video online, and basically I did it with Intuit, and it's how can you how can you discern whether an expense is deductible? So this is basically from my video, and you can look at that on YouTube. I also provided which small business financial professional to hire, because that's the most common question is, who am I supposed to hire and how are they going to help me in my business? And then lastly, I just wanted to end with what comes next. So I'm sure Corinne will help me with this, but you all have a special partner discount with QuickBooks. We have a QR code that's going to be inside of your resources that you can go ahead and take advantage of. And as always, I just want to end with a quote. Today is going to be on investment in knowledge pays the best interest by Benjamin Franklin. And you all made an awesome investment in yourselves today. So let me go ahead and stop sharing and let Corinne take over.
Wow, Mariette, you could not have packed anything else in there. There's a lot there. And I like to think I was pretty knowledgeable about the accounting and the books because I've been closing books for a lot of years, and I learned some valuable things. So I'm sure our attendees did too. And I'm seeing good accolades in the chat, but we got to get right to some important information before we wrap up, which is you've been asking, and yes, we will send the presentation and the resources in a follow-up message, not only to those of you who attended the entire session, but everyone who registered, just because we know real life happens and we want to be sure you get access to this. So don't panic. Don't worry about capturing what's in the chat. We're also going to provide this in a follow-up email to you. Also, if you liked what you heard here, or you'd like to learn more and new other things related to QuickBooks, we do have another event brewing. Keep your eye out. We're going to be confirming the time soon, so we'll be sharing details. You're already on our email list, so you'll get the information, and it will take place on February 17. So we're a couple of weeks out, and you can guess who the star presenter will be. So we'll be excited to be bringing Mariette Martinez back to you all. So with that, I'm not sure if there's anything else I may have missed or needed to address before we close. Thank you for sharing your email in the chat for everyone here. Have a blessed day. Yeah.
Thank you, Corinne, for everything. Thank you all for showing up. This was awesome.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.